What's up, everybody? Welcome to week 7 of college football. Can you believe this has to be like the halfway point, right? I mean, we're halfway to bowl season. Anyways, what an eventful week last week was, not just for the Big 12, but for all of college football in general. As you may have known, Iowa State got its first loss, which was a heartbreaker, but there were some great games. UCLA beat Penn State, which what a shock that was. Texas still sucks. At least their quarterback does. And yeah, I wasn't able to watch any of the games this weekend. I was gone camping. So pretty disconnected, which, out of all weekends to miss, this was a pretty good one. There wasn't too much going on. The upsets were crazy. Who would have expected that? Going into the week, nobody would have expected that. So going into the weekend, I wasn't too bummed about missing many of these games. So I'll get into it. I'm going to switch my screen over here, show you last week's game and how I did in my predictions. So white screen coming up, flashbang warning. And let me pull up my record here. So for the games, we've got West Virginia BYU from Friday. The spread going into that was BYU minus 19.5, which I picked, and they did not cover the spread, so that's a loss. Then we had Texas Tech and Houston. Texas Tech minus 11.5 spread, so won that one. Iowa State Cincinnati, that was a 1.5 point spread. Cincinnati favored. I lost that one. I picked Iowa State. Kansas State Baylor. Baylor was a 6.5 point favorite. I picked Baylor 6.5, lost that one. Oklahoma State, Arizona. Arizona was a 20.5 point favorite. I picked them. They obviously cleared that with room to go. Colorado and TCU. TCU minus 13.5 is what I picked. They got that at 14, so just squeezed it out. And finally, Kansas and UCF. Kansas minus 5.5 was the line. I picked... I picked UCF plus 5.5. That was a loss. I marked it as a win for some reason. So UCF did not cover the 5.5 point spread. So overall on the season, I am 12-11. So slightly above 500. If all of these spread odds were at minus 110 and you placed to win $10, you would be down $1 right now for a minus 0.4% ROI. So pretty much even as you can get. Now, going into this week, we've got some games to look at. Some much more exciting games to look at. Wait, I did start recording. I thought I almost didn't start recording. Sorry about that. So going into the week, our first up is all Saturday games, so that's nice. UCF at Cincinnati, and this is... I feel like every week I pick the favorites. So spoiler alert, I'm picking the favorites. Or at least the minus spreads. Cincinnati beat us. Cincinnati is very physical and very versatile. I didn't watch the highlights of this game yet. I know Iowa State's in a little bit of a rough spot right now, but Cincinnati they're dogs. And UCF is like okay, but not at this level. Again, they're a mid-pack, low-pack team. They're still 0-2 in the conference. But Cincinnati minus 11.5, I'm going to take them. I think they could be the, I don't know if I said this before, or if I heard it somewhere, they can be the Arizona State of a previous season, last season. So I'm riding with them. Houston and Oklahoma State. Houston, usually the underdogs. I guess depending on who they're playing. Not usually. They've only played one conference game, haven't they? Houston favored by over 2 touchdowns in this game. I'm going to be taking them as in the principle of bet against Oklahoma State until it stops working. Thankfully, this isn't a 20.5 point spread. It's a 14.5 point spread. You get the hook, but, I think Houston can probably clear this, win by 3.5 scores. Early game. Not much to watch in this early window for the Big 12. Next up, we got Iowa State at Colorado. Another scary game. Iowa State's favored by 2.5. This has moved down from 4.5 when it opened, though. I hope Iowa State can win. I don't think, all hope is lost. We have lost some key players. We don't have a kicking game at all. We could have won last week had we had our kicker, I believe. We missed a field goal for 3 points and then had 3 turnovers on downs within field goal range. So that's another 9 points, assuming that he makes the field goals if we had Conradi, our kicker. So that would have been an extra 12 points. We lost by 8, could have won by 4, potentially. It's very odd watching a team go from being dominant to playing like they can't make a 30-yard field goal because they can't. It's definitely an interesting time. I don't like Colorado. Hope Dion's fine. Whatever his blood clot thing is, this is the first time seeing it. Hope his health is good. But don't care for his football team. Hopefully we can win. Hopefully it's not too close. Hopefully this is a bit of a bounce back for Iowa State and bring some momentum back into the program a little bit. TCU at Kansas State on at the same time as the Iowa State game. I think this 2:30 window is really good for the Big 12. These are 2 really good games. TCU is favored. Oh yeah, but I'm picking Iowa State minus 2.5 in the previous game. I don't know if I said that. I'm picking TCU minus 1.5. I think they're going to win, which is pretty much what that is. I don't know how Kansas State loses by 1 in this. I think TCU can beat them by a field goal to a touchdown range. Again, TCU's a bit more established. Kansas State's so streaky. Kansas State could win by a touchdown. Who knows? They're just so weird, but I'm going to be putting my stock in TCU for this one, especially with how tight of a game it is. It's in Manhattan. It's going to be a nice day. High of 79 apparently. So, I don't know. I think it'll be a fine game. It'll be an exciting game to watch, I believe. If you like either of these 2 teams, it's going to be a purple out. Just because there are 2 purple teams playing. I don't know if that's the official thing. High scoring game, bit of a shootout, but should be a good game. Another high scoring game, Kansas at Texas Tech. Now, I've been saying Kansas is a good team. They've gone down a little bit on my roster. Obviously, I picked UCF plus 5.5 against them last week, which it didn't pan out. They won by like 7 or 8, so not too far off. Texas Tech is really good. I don't like that this is on the bad side of the hook for Texas Tech spread at 14.5. That's a little worrying, but that's mostly a psychological game, I think. It opened at 14.5. Total's gone down 2 points, but I'm going to pick Texas Tech minus 14.5. I think they just rebranded their logo, if I'm not mistaken. It looks worse, but, what do I know? Wonderful 6:30 game. This is great. Not the best Big 12 game of the week, I don't think. That's to come. But, yeah, I'm picking Texas Tech. Go until it doesn't work. They're insane. I really enjoy watching them. They're a fun team to watch. Another interesting game, which, I think this late window, these last 3 games of the week are some of the best games to watch this week. At least if you like the Big 12. This is I don't know if ESPN Analytics is off or what's going on. Vegas thinks this is a toss-up game. ESPN thinks BYU has a 70% chance to win. I'm picking BYU to win. I'm looking back, and both of these teams haven't really beaten anybody. Arizona lost to Iowa State, of course, when they were better, more healthy. But neither team has really beaten a great conference opponent. BYU, of course, 18th in the country, whatever. Won 2 conference games. Their 2 wins are West Virginia and Colorado. Colorado, okay. West Virginia's whatever. Arizona's wins against a K-State team, which is confusing, and Oklahoma State. So I think this will be a good game. I expect BYU to win. Obviously, if you're only giving me 1.5 points, I'm going to take that. But it'll be an interesting game and an entertaining game at the very least. This is what I think is going to be the game of the day, a night game, 9:15, I guess 8:15 in Utah. Arizona State at Utah. This is going to be a super interesting game. This is the one game I'm not picking the favorite on. I'm picking ASU plus 5.5 in this. You know, it could get hooked. They could lose by a touchdown, whatever. But I think Arizona State definitely has the potential to win this game. I know Utah is a very hard place to play, but like if we have another Utah-Texas Tech sort of shootout, that would be super fun to watch. I really hope I can watch this game a little bit this weekend. 9:15 kick as a game to fall asleep to, but this is going to be a super exciting game. One of the games for top of the conference, potentially, depending on how BYU and Texas Tech turn out. Utah's not at the top, but, you know, this top is such a close race. So, anyways, that's the Big 12 slate this week. I know we've been going on a bit about it, but we'll swap over to some other games. Some people wanted Alabama and Missouri. Alabama exceeded my expectations. I thought Vanderbilt could upset them last week. Obviously didn't happen. It was close going into halftime. They were tied. I didn't watch the game. I just looked at the Google score. But then Vandy didn't score in the second half, so boo them. But I think this one, you know, this is another one where the spread has really tanked on Alabama. Opening at 5.5, it's currently at 2.5. And that 2.5 is probably just from Missouri being the home team. Actually, no, that's a lie. Missouri's not favored. So, I don't know. I really don't know much about this game at all. I would pick against Alabama and for the Hateful Eight friend, but I don't know. I could flip a coin and decide on that. Honestly, I think Missouri, I would want Missouri to win because they've played some Big 12 teams, or they've played Kansas, and that would look like a better loss for Kansas. Alabama obviously hasn't played any Big 12 teams, so I think on that principle, I'm going to go Missouri. If this was 5.5, I would definitely pick Missouri 5.5. I don't know who's going to win this game. I think either way, it's going to be within a 5-point window of whatever. 5 to 7 points is going to be whoever wins is how much they're going to win it by. Indiana and Oregon. Someone wants Oregon. I think Indiana is still a scary team. I don't know who they played last week. Okay, they had a bye last week because Iowa had a bye last week. So they're coming off they're coming off a bye. They're doing their thing. They're going to Oregon. So if we want to start the conversation again about the Big Ten time zone travel trend, last week I told you about the two, which was Penn State going to UCLA and Washington going to Maryland. If you were to pick UCLA plus 26.5, you would have won, obviously, because they won the game in an upsetting fashion. Crazy to see. But Maryland also covered the spread against Washington, even though they lost. So overall, this trend is 5-4 with a 6% ROI, I believe. Yeah. So 5-4 overall. This week there's 4 games. Oregon is one of them. So you would pick Oregon minus 7.5 because they're home. So, you know, I like Indiana. I hope this is a good game and be a good game to watch. Obviously, I'm going to be watching 2 different games at 2:30 if I'm watching football on Saturday, which who knows. But you would pick Oregon. This is obviously not one of them. But someone likes Texas. Oklahoma at Texas. I'm surprised this was a toss-up, maybe because it's a rivalry game. I think, who knows what's going on. I would pick Oklahoma to win this game, personally. ESPN is picking 61% of the time Texas is winning this game. Vegas is picking it as a toss-up. So if you were to listen to me, I'd go with Oklahoma. I think this is going to be an entertaining game no matter what. Usually it is, at least. But again, I'm watching different games at 2:30. if you're into this sort of thing, go watch it. If they were both in the Big 12, I would watch it. They are not too bad for them. Iowa and Wisconsin. This is the last one before we get back to the Big Ten time zone thing. Iowa and Wisconsin. Iowa coming off a bye. I don't really know much about them. This is going back to another classical, really small over-under, reminiscent of the old Iowa days. I imagine Iowa's going to win this. Wisconsin's not all that great. Kind of surprised that the spread is so small, but it could be because of how low scoring of a game it is. But yeah, I'm picking Iowa. Look at how few passing yards these quarterbacks have compared to the ones that we were seeing earlier. 600 yards versus 1,400 yards is crazy. Anyways, I digress. Michigan is both a team that someone requested and a time zone thing. I'm surprised that the spread is where it's at. I would think USC would be a little bit more favored, but what do I know? Again, this one is Michigan traveling west to go to USC. You pick the home team no matter which direction they're traveling, so you would pick USC minus 2.5 and just blind bet it. Rutgers going all the way to Washington, complete cross-country travel. Crazy that this is a thing. You're picking Washington minus 10.5. If that's your thing, you go right ahead. Obviously, ESPN thinks they're going to win 76% of the time. Crazy amount. You can go to this game for $15. Apparently nobody wants to watch Rutgers lose to Washington. Maybe this will be another upset game, though. Who really knows? Finally, UCLA is back in the mix. They're 1-4 UCLA. Is the powerhouse who probably has the best single win record of the season. 11 a.m. game going to Michigan State. You're going to have to pick Michigan State minus 8.5. I got it at 7.5. Maybe you can find it there still. Who knows? But I don't think Michigan State's going to have a problem beating UCLA. I don't really know what happened last week, if it was a UCLA or a Penn State thing. I'm thinking it's more of a Penn State thing. But UCLA, minus last week, is still not a good team. Pick Michigan State no matter what. So, those are the games. I hope you've enjoyed the analysis. We've got fantasy football to talk about, though. I went 1-1 last week in fantasy football, yet again, which means I am no longer unvictorious in either of my leagues. So, this is the league I lost in last week. Pretty much faced all good teams. I beat my projections, I believe, because, yeah, everything balanced out. I beat my projections by 4 points, which is great, The person I was up against, though, skyrocketed past theirs. Rashid White beat his projections by 9. Devontae Smith beat his by 10. Jefferson, 7. Can't do much against that. Everything just kind of added up. Tough loss. Not too bent about that. It happens. I exceeded my projections. Can't be too bummed. Not in last place, so that's all that matters. This is the one I won. Didn't know Brock Bowers wasn't going to be in the game, so I have 0 points for my tight end spot, and I still managed to win the week. Somehow. Thank God the other person's team tanked. Projected 122, got 105. Justin Fields, great. Alvin Kamara, sucks. Missed his projections. ETN didn't do as good as I thought he would. I was hopeful. Jamar Chase really pulled out for me, pretty much doubling his projections. He got 29 points. Flowers was fine. Everybody else did fine. They did what they needed to do. So we're doing good. We're no longer last in this league. Well, I wasn't last. I was 9th. But we're no longer, scraping the bottom. So let me pull up this week. I'm showing this just in case there's any identifying information. I got my team here. This is this week. I've already rearranged my team a little bit. I've got Bo Nix starting over Justin Fields. since, Jets and Denver are playing each other. I think Knicks is going to be way better. Broncos defense is good. Jacobs is back. He was on a bye week last week. They're facing Cincinnati, who is really bad against the run. Keeping ETN in just for now. Chase, obviously. Flowers, keeping him in. I don't have, great other wide receivers. I don't know if I should put Godwin in. I got Marvin Harrison in my flex spot. Bowers, I'm keeping on my bench for a few weeks. I'm going to have Jake Ferguson in because Bowers is so streaky and hit or miss, and I don't have time to check like an hour before the opening window if he's going to play or not. Ferguson has been really good this week or this year, especially after week 1. He's just been putting up consistent numbers, so that's great. They're facing Carolina, not a great defense. I am trying to swap the Cardinals defense for the Packers defense this week, so hopefully we'll do that because I don't want. The Cardinals have been like pretty mid. They're fine for a defense, but they've got a tough streak coming up. So that's where we're at with that. I'm hopeful. I'm projected to win. I've got 127 projected points. We'll see. Who really knows, though? So that's the rundown. The Bears didn't lose this week. They didn't play, but they didn't lose. So, that's something to be happy about. The Bears did not lose this week. They've gone 3 weeks without losing. So haven't been able to say that in over a year. Look at us, moving up in the world. So that's the analysis. That's the video for this week. Let me know what games you're going to be watching, what teams you've got picked to win, how your fantasy team's doing, and all that good jazz. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in week 8.